أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي أشدد به أزري وأشرك به أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إسرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome. We're gonna start the sixth topic from the rays. Inshallah. Let's do that. It's on page 226. This is part of the section of the fruits of belief. And this is the sixth topic. So this consists of a single brief proof of the pillar of belief in God. So one of the pillars of belief in God. For which there are numerous decisive proofs and explanations in many places in the Risale-i-Nur. So of course, what we are always doing in these sessions, we are trying to get our connection with our Lord and increasing our belief in Him. So we need all these reminders as much as we can, every day, every moment, every week, whatever time we have in this life is given for us to improve upon our belief, inshallah. So in Kastamonu, a group of high school students came to me. So the author speaking here saying, tell us about our creator. So young students, young folks, high school, you can imagine, so came to the author telling him, tell us about our creator. Our teachers do not speak of God. I said to them, all the sciences that you study continuously speak of God and make known the creator, each with its own particular tongue. So all the sciences each with its own particular tongue speaks of God and makes known the creator. So do not listen to your teachers, listen to those sciences that you're studying, listen to them. I guess that's what he means. Do not listen to your teachers, listen to them. For example, a well-equipped pharmacy with life-giving potions and cures in every jar, weighed out in precise and wondrous measures, undoubtedly shows an extremely skillful, practiced, and wise pharmacist. A well-equipped pharmacy with life-giving potions and cures in every jar, weighed out in precise and wondrous measures, undoubtedly shows an extremely skillful, practiced, and wise pharmacist. In the same way, to the extent that it is bigger and more perfect and better stocked than the pharmacy in the marketplace. In the same way, to the extent that it is bigger and more perfect and better stocked than the pharmacy in the marketplace, the pharmacy of the globe. Okay, so that's what it is. The pharmacy of the globe is more perfect and better stocked than the pharmacy in the marketplace. So the pharmacy of the globe of the earth, with its living potions and medicaments in the jars, which are the 400,000 species of plants and animals, shows and makes known to eyes that are not blind even, by means of the measure or scale, by means of the measure or scale of the science of medicine that you study, the all-wise one of glory, who is the pharmacist of the mighty pharmacy of the earth. So in the science of medicine that is being studied, it shows that the all-wise one of glory, who is the pharmacist of the mighty pharmacy of the earth. To take another example, a wondrous factory which weaves thousands of sorts of cloth from a simple material, doubtless makes known a manufacturer and skillful mechanic. In the same way, to whatever extent it is larger and more perfect than the human factory, this traveling dominical machine, known as the globe of the earth, with its hundreds of thousands of heads, in each of which are hundreds of thousands of factories, shows and makes known by means of the measure or scale of the science of engineering which you study, its manufacturer and owner. So the science of engineering which you study, its manufacturer and owner. So these are some examples. I think he's going to give more examples, looks like, on whatever this we are studying or we've studied, but this study never ends, at least for me, as more discoveries are made in each and every arena, in every field, especially in the sciences. It's just continuous. Everything keeps on updating with all the new technology, innovations, the way the civilization is offering all those, you name it, in terms of the factories of different kinds of machines. You look at your household appliances, look at the tools that we're using, the computing power that's going on. Do you have anything to say? Yeah, and with the all that the progress that is being done, the food and things that we order right at your doorstep, they come. All that is made possible by the manufacturer and owner, the one who owns the whole earth. But we fail to see that many times, but everything is made possible. Just like the example Brother Ali gave yesterday about the planting of those corn seed that in the soil. And what is the factory underneath the soil that is going to produce all those plants and bring all those in one ear of corn, multiple seed, like grains of that particular corn. So let's continue with the examples, and everybody just please chime in whenever you guys can. If you think of anything, just please share that. And for example, a depot, store, or shop in which has been brought together and stored up in regular and orderly fashion 1,001 varieties of provisions undoubtedly makes known. Yeah, now this is better. Doubtless and undoubtedly makes known a wondrous owner, proprietor, and overseer of provisions and foodstuffs. In just the same way, to whatever degree it is vaster and more perfect than such a store or factory, this food store of the most merciful one, known as the globe of the earth, this divine ship, this dominical depot, and shop holding goods. 1 second, please, hold on. All right, I'm back. Okay, so let me read that again. And for example, a depot store or shop in which has been brought together and stored up in regular and orderly fashion 1,001 varieties of provisions. So whatever stores that you go to, supermarkets, undoubtedly makes known a wondrous owner, proprietor, and overseer of provisions and foodstuffs. In just the same way, to whatever degree it is vaster and more perfect than such a store or factory, this food store of the most merciful one, known as the globe of the earth, this divine ship, this dominical depot, and shop holding goods. Let's go to the next page. Equipment and conserved food, which in 1 year travels regularly an orbit of 24,000 years and carrying groups of beings requiring different foods and passing through the seasons on its journey and filling the spring with thousands of different provisions, like a huge wagon or truckloads, brings them to the wretched animate creatures whose sustenance has been exhausted in winter. Brings them to the wretched animate creatures whose sustenance has been exhausted in winter. By means of the measure or scale of the science of economics, which you study, this depot of the earth makes known and makes loved its manager, organizer, and owner. Science of economics, which you study, this depot of the earth makes known and makes loved its manager, organizer, and owner. Yeah, all these different, how the orbit of the 24,000 years, so the earth's with the different seasons that we encounter. Yeah, spring and winter, fall, whatever. All sorts of varieties of plants and animals and different flowers, plants, whatever, you name it. For different provisions for all sorts of different creatures, animate creatures. Food store of the most merciful one, known as the globe of the earth, this divine ship, who's that owner, the manager, who is organizing all that on that scale. And for example, let us imagine an army which consists of 400,000 nations, and each nation requires different provisions, uses different weapons, wears different uniforms, undergoes different drills, and is discharged from its duties differently. If this army and camp has a miracle working commander who on his own provides all those different nations with all their different provisions, weapons, uniforms, and equipment without forgetting or confusing any of them, then surely the army and camp show that the commander and make the army and camp show the commander and make him loved appreciatively. In just the same way, the spring camp of the face of the earth, in which every spring a newly recruited divine army of the 400,000 species of plants and animals are given their varying uniforms, rations, weapons, training, and demobilizations in utterly perfect and regular fashion by a single commander-in-chief who forgets or confuses not one of them. Every spring, a newly recruited divine army of the 400,000 species of plants and animals are given their varying uniforms, rations, weapons, training, and demobilizations in utterly perfect and regular fashion by a single commander-in-chief who forgets or confuses not one of them. Who forgets or confuses not one of them. To whatever extent the spring camp of the face of the earth is vaster and more perfect than that human army. By means of the measure or scale of the military science that you study, it makes known to the attentive and sensible its ruler, sustainer, administrator, the most holy commander, causing wonderment and acclaim, and makes him loved and praised and glorified. All right, let's continue with more examples, unless anybody wants to comment so far what we've read. Another example, millions of electric lights that move and travel through a wondrous city. Millions of electric lights that move and travel through a wondrous city, their fuel and power source never being exhausted, self-evidently make known a wonder-working craftsman and extraordinarily talented electrician who manages the electricity, makes the moving lamps, sets up the power source, and brings the fuel. They cause others to congratulate and applaud him, and to love him. In just the same way, although some of the lamps of the stars in the roof of the palace of the world, in the city of the universe, if they are considered in the way that astronomy says, if they are considered in the way that astronomy says, are 1,000 times larger than the earth and move 70 times faster than a cannonball. They do not spoil their order, nor collide with one another, nor become extinguished, nor is their fuel exhausted. According to astronomy, which you study, for our sun to continue burning, which is 1,000,000 times larger than the earth and 1,000,000 times older, and is a lamp and stove in one guest house of the most merciful one. As much oil as the seas of the earth, and as much coal as its mountains, or as many logs, and much wood as 10 earths are necessary for it not to be extinguished. according to astronomy, which you study, for our sun to continue burning, which is 1,000,000 times larger than the earth and 1,000,000 times older, and is a lamp and stove in one guest house of the most merciful one. As much oil as the seas of the earth, and as much coal as its mountains, or as many logs and much wood as 10 earths are necessary for it, not to be extinguished. And however much greater and more perfect than this example are the electric lamps of the palace of the world in the majestic city of the universe, which point with their fingers of light to an infinite power and sovereignty, which illuminates the sun and other lofty stars like it, without oil, wood, or coal, not allowing them to be extinguished or to collide with one another. Though traveling together at speed to that degree, by means of the measure of the science of electricity, which you either study or will study, they testify to and make known the monarch, illuminator, director, and maker of the mighty exhibition of the universe. They make him loved, glorified, and worshipped. More examples. And, for example, take a book in every line of which a whole book is finely written. Take a book in every line of which a whole book is finely written, and in every word of which a surah of the Quran is inscribed with a fine pen, being most meaningful with all of its matters corroborating one another, and a wondrous collection showing its writer and author to be extraordinarily skillful and capable. It undoubtedly shows its writer and author, together with all his perfections and arts, as clearly as daylight, and makes him known. It makes him appreciated with phrases like, "What wonders God has willed," and "Blessed be God." Just the same is the mighty book of the universe. We see with our eyes a pen at work, which writes on the face of the earth, which is a single of its pages, and on the spring, which is a single folio, the 300,000 plant and animal species, which are like 300,000 different books, all together, one within the other, all together at the same time, one within the other, without fault or error, without mixing them up or confusing them, perfectly and with complete order. And sometimes writes an ode in a word like a tree, and the complete index of a book in a point like seed. However much vaster and more perfect and meaningful than the book in the example mentioned above is this compendium of the universe and mighty embodied Quran of the world. which is infinitely full of meaning, and in every word of which are numerous instances of wisdom. To that degree, in accordance with the extensive measure and far-seeing vision of the natural science that you study, the natural science that you study, and the sciences of reading and writing that you have practiced at school, it makes known the inscriber and author of the book of the universe, together with his infinite perfections, proclaiming, God is most great. It makes him known, uttering phrases like, Glory be to God. It describes him, acclaiming him with words like, All praise be to God. It makes him loved. Thus, hundreds of other sciences like these make known the glorious creator of the universe, together with his names, each through its broad measure or scale, its particular mirror, its far-seeing eyes, and searching gaze. They make known his attributes and perfections. It is in order to give instruction in this matter, which is a brilliant and magnificent proof of divine unity, that the Quran of miraculous exposition teaches us about our Creator, most often with the verses, Sustainer of the heavens and the earth. Quran, section 6, verse 1. With very often repeated phrases, Sustainer of the heavens and the earth, and he created the heavens and earth. Section 13, verse 16 of the Quran. I said this to the schoolboys, and they accepted it completely, affirming it by saying, Endless thanks be to God, for we have received an absolutely true and sacred lesson. May God be pleased with you. And I said, Man is a living machine who is grieved with thousands of different sorrows and receives pleasure in thousands of different ways. And despite his utter impotence, has innumerable enemies, physical and spiritual. And despite his infinite poverty, has countless needs, external and inner, and is a wretched creature, continuously suffering the blows of death and separation. Yet, through belief and worship, he at once becomes connected to a monarch so glorious, he finds a point of support against all his enemies and a source of help for all his needs. And like everyone takes pride at the honor and rank of the Lord to whom he is attached, like everyone takes pride at the honor and rank of the Lord to whom he is attached, you can compare for yourselves how pleased and grateful and thankful and full of pride man becomes at being connected through belief to an infinite, powerful, and compassionate monarch, at entering his service through worship and transforming for himself the announcement of the execution of the appointed hour into the papers, releasing him from duty. All right, I'm going to take a pause here. If anybody wants to say anything, please help me out here. Despite his utter impotence, has innumerable enemies, physical and spiritual. What is a spiritual enemy? Any clue by anyone? Something that takes you away from the...
Only a short paragraph is left. There is a conclusion
Okay,
according
let me read that.
to
Okay. Okay. I repeat to the calamity-stricken prisoners what I said to the schoolboys. One who recognizes him and obeys him is fortunate even if he is in prison. One who recognizes him and obeys him, yeah, this is important, obeys him, is fortunate even if he is in prison. While one who forgets him is wretched and a prisoner even if he resides in a palace. Even one wronged but fortunate man said to the wretched tyrants who were executing him, I am not being executed by being demobilized and departing for where I shall find happiness. But I see that you are being condemned to eternal execution, and am therefore taking perfect revenge on you, and declaring there is no God but God. He happily surrendered up his spirit. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all knowing, all wise. Quran, section 2, verse 32. Okay, Brother Ali, or anybody else, please go ahead. Brother Ali, go ahead, please.
anybody else. Where are they? Now, Assalamu alaikum. This piece is important not because it contains the information. Most of the information the author quotes here or gives us is outdated. Most of them we know that it's outdated. But the method is permanent there. First of all, the first thing we have to understand that the author is speaking to high school students. It means young teenagers. According to their capacity. But that time, excuse me, when he wrote this book, somewhere around early 40s, the knowledge available for a high school is completely different from now. High school students are studying much higher degree of sciences nowadays. But we don't pay attention to what the content is, the content of the examples. But we have to pay attention in which framework the author is speaking to according to their level, according to the capacity of their knowledge. I don't mean to hint that, in fact, the author knows more than this, but really reduces it. I don't know. I don't claim that anything. Maybe not, but that doesn't matter. We have to apply the same method, even if people say that the fuel of the sunlight burning there is no fuel. I mean, of course, there is no fuel because there is some sort of fusion or whatever they call it. Okay, And they say the text says it never dies, but nowadays people formulated that they go into black hole. It means they die. But these are not important. Speaking to the people according to their level, according to their capacity, and also we see the same thing in the Quran. Very simple examples. Very simple. Everybody can understand it, but those people who know better how the things work, of course, they should think of it in their own capacity of knowledge, but apply it, apply the method in the same way as the Quran shows, mentions. What the Quran mentions is they are the most obvious examples that everybody knows. So this text also shows it, because the subject is not that the author or the Quran is going to teach us pharmacy or astronomy or economics or engineering, uh, or all these kind of different disciplines of knowledge or disciplines of studies. This is not the point. What we understand from here, taking the examples, for example, the author never referred in this text that we are Muslims, the Quran says, the, and the quoting the verses and some sayings of the scholars, Muslim scholars. It is quite interesting. He doesn't mention all this because he knows that there is a difference that is essential. What science itself, it means the creation out there itself says, is completely different from what the scientists interpreted. We have to pay attention to it, and we shouldn't miss this point. Science is something else. Scientism, scientific philosophy, scientists' personal ideas and interpretations are completely different from what the universe says.
Are you speaking, Brother Ali? I don't hear
And
you.
carefully arranged the universe is. Do you hear me now? I think the voice.
Yes, we hear you now.
Now,
Thank
how carefully, meticulously arranged, measured, ordered, put it in an order, the creationist demonstrates the quality of the creator. That's what we have to pay attention to. The more detailed information we have about the universe, the better evidence of the measurement, fine-tuning, arrangement of the universe we can get. So it becomes the more investigation in the universe only helps the human beings altogether to understand how this universe cannot be explained within itself. The contradiction is there. The perfect arrangement, the more we investigate, the more we realize. On the other hand, the attributed, the scientist is unbelieving scientist is attributed to accident, attributed to happenings by themselves, etc., doesn't make sense even more and more as the discoveries come up. What do they use? We know that keep promising that they will discover. Of course, you know better than I do what's going on in that arena. So, another point that attracted my attention, the text frequently referred to first belief in God. If belief in the Creator, although the text doesn't use the word God. He uses, let's say, who is the pharmacist of the mighty pharmacy of the earth. And the other one is the manufacturer and owner of this machine of the sky or the celestial bodies. And the other one is most merciful one and manager, organizer, owner. All the qualities are mentioned if you follow that. The ruler, the administrator, holy commander, etc. And what else? Now, the director, illuminator, monarch, maker, and what else? It means rather than using the umbrella term God, we have to use his qualities in our understanding or in our presenting, in the way that we present our understandings, our conclusions to others. That is what is not very frequently used in the rhetoric of today's rhetoric. We just say God, straight away God. But the author is very careful not to use the word God because the people, the students, need evidence as they see the engineering in a machine or organizer of the pharmacy or the drugstore or the pharmaceutical productions and needs a pharmacist. There is no need to say that Johnson is the pharmacist. There is no need. But we are trying to understand the necessary existence of all these qualities manifested in the universe, what they need. If there is an organizing, so there must be an organizer. That's why the Quran concludes most of his arguments by using the Ismail Husna, the names of God. Yet another point that attracted my attention, he doesn't really say only they point to the Creator with his names and qualities mentioned here, but also uses praising him, glorifying him, loving him, and even more worshiping him. And yeah, I think this one, belief, love, worship. This mainly follows the three stages. That is also interesting because only believing in the existence of God does not really help me in my practical life almost at all. Yeah, it saves me from being a very unreasonable and irrational person by saying that the universe doesn't have an owner, creator. But in my practical life, it doesn't mean much. So loving, praising, glorifying, worshiping is the real matter, the real subject here. as an extension of the Creator, or as an extension of the believing in God's existence. Last paragraph is very important to find out. He turns to the people around him, practically speaking, and says, with a very interesting sentence, the one who recognizes him and obeys him is fortunate, even if he is in prison, because his body is in prison, but his consciousness, his mind, his feelings, spirit is free. In fact, this phrase is used by a person who put in prison together with the author, and they tortured him. He was a young man, young boy, and maybe has spoken somehow with an excited voice or somewhere because of his age. They tortured him to death. While he was dying, he was saying this. Now, I see that, what was it? I am not being executed, but being demobilized and departing for where I shall find happiness. But I see you, and it's a kind of real life experience happened. I see that you are being condemned to eternal execution and am therefore taking perfect revenge on you because of their unbelief, because they were torturing him to death because he defended belief in God. That is what I understood or gathered from what we have read today. And I would like to hear our friends as well.
Thank you, Brother Ali. Yes, friends, anybody else who would like to comment? Anything? Yeah, some of the points Brother Ali highlighted from an overall view about his methodology in terms of, speaking to the level of the audience and not using heavy religious language. And yeah, Sohail, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you go back to the prior page? Oh, okay. Maybe it was the one before that, but the line where he says, "Do not listen." I think that was the first sentence. Do not listen to your teachers. Was that the first line? Yeah. Yeah. And to me, that sort of stuck because, based off the other paragraphs, I think especially because he's talking, to students or to young people, it's very easy to, like what Ali Member was saying and the way he presents it. When you present, like if I were to present the world in a way to somebody which said, God does this and that, and he does this and he creates that. And this is how he creates. It sounds very elementary, like very childish or sort of superficial. And so when a student goes and listens to the teacher, I mean, even though they don't know what they're talking about, if you examine the essence of what they're saying, the premises and the foundation of what they're saying, but it sounds it sounds thought out, like intellectual, reasonable. And I think, one of the most important points to take away from this is that, like, people who say they're scholars, or they talk about, belief in Islam and the Quranic worldview, or the Quran's perception of the world, they don't present it in the way in which the Quran asks them to present it, because not even the Quran says to take things for granted, but to question things and to look at things and examine them, like what a scientist would do, exactly what a scientist would do in this age, no different. And to me, that's the way he presents it, is that he's going to the world and examining it for himself. And to me, that's at least a big takeaway for me, is that you cannot, I cannot present belief, or to myself or to others, or the Quran, in a way in which, I'm taking things for granted, because it doesn't have any base or foundation. And so when somebody comes along who denies and then uses nice language, or very sophisticated language with big words to impress people, to make it sound like, well, this is the explanation of the world, and it sounds reasonable, apparently, then it's not a surprise when, a student says, well, whatever let's say the Quran, for example, says is a fairy tale, it's all made up, or whatever these people are talking about is all just an imagination, or an illusion, or a delusion. So that's kind of, I think, one of the most important things I take away from it. And like Wally Mummer said about science versus scientists who engage in scientism, that's their interpretation of the world. And similarly, I can have my own interpretation of the world, but I have to use the world, though. I can't just presume things and just assume things when trying to explain things to people. Because the human being, especially a student who's trying to look for an answer and has not become sort of set in their ways, they're looking for an answer that they find reasonable, or they think is reasonable, and they're questioning. So, the reason they're questioning is because maybe they don't find this standard religious answer acceptable or satisfactory, and maybe that's the reason why, or just out of human curiosity. And human curiosity needs to be satisfied, or on a reasonable base. So that's what I took. That's one of the big takeaways I took from this.
Thank you, Suhail. And yeah, in the same first paragraph also, as you said about the interpretations, all the teachers, they're innocent also in a way, because they don't know what all what they're teaching is about. The sciences that they teach is never thought of it in a way about existence. That's the major thing. How is this, or the order that is coming, who made the order, or whatever the interpretations is trying to find within the thing itself, within the order itself, trying to find, interpreting it. That's where all the things lie. And then again, all the points that were made in terms of the methodology and how to present something is, using and mentioning the qualities that we observe, and who can own those qualities, what can, not really going into a shortcut umbrella term, and where there's no mention of in terms of how the order and what do you deduce in terms of what qualities do you see from that particular order, or the science that you're studying. Good points. Any final comments before we conclude for today? All right, I think we can stop here for today, and inshallah we'll continue with the next, which one? Yeah, the 7th topic next time, inshallah. Thank you, everyone. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. آخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. بحرمة سورة الفاتحة.